Bob Bjarke, longtime friend, first time guest. Thank you for being here, Bob.
Oh, this is a pleasure.
Are your feet nude or are your feet clothed?
I'm fully clothed, but you'll
Nice.
never know.
Yeah, well, my feet were nude and I had to put socks on just because I didn't feel comfortable doing this without them on. Bob, I have you here because you've just gone through something momentous. All of us have these millions of ideas floating around and we mention them. We're at a party, we're social, this, that, your spouse or friend, da, da. And it's like, oh, this is a great idea. We should do that. And what happens to it? You actually followed through. Please walk me through what happened on your journey with freeing this idea out of your head into the world.
Yeah, no, I love. First of all, I love this podcast, and I love the initiative that you have taken to free more ideas because that's a big part of the way I operate. Is there are tons of ideas, like you said, bouncing around, and those are fun to have. But I think it's more fun to make them and to have made them. So that's the way I do a lot of work, whether I'm doing technology things or whether I'm doing writing or whatever it is, or music. It's really very exciting to me to like bring ideas into the world and share them with people. So, for this book, it's called No Clue, and it's a detective story about a guy who is a renowned detective and suddenly loses his ability to solve crimes. It's a fun book. I tried to write it more like a '90s indie film than a book. It's super fast. In fact, I tried to write it so that you could read it in the time it takes to watch a movie.
Nice.
But the idea really came about just like you kind of how you described. It's like, yeah, you're talking to people about stuff and an idea comes up and oh, wouldn't it be cool? And in this case, I was on a walk with my kids. I have two boys, they're 13 and 10. We were having some kind of conversation about something, I don't remember what, and somebody answered a question with, I don't know, no clue. In that moment, I was just like, okay, no clue, I like that expression. It'd be kind of funny if that was a book about a detective who lost his ability to solve crimes.
Because kids, I've talked about a lot, that they're so close to that creative experience. There's no self-sabotage. There's no barriers. They're like, well, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't you? And that's what's beautiful, that you were walking with them and that came up. So then after that, who'd you communicate it to next?
Any project like this or anything, I think the most important thing for me when I'm doing it is to start anywhere at any time and just begin doing it. So there were, I think we had that conversation, we tossed it back and forth, we thought it was funny. I think probably there was a couple week period where I was kind of thinking about it in my mind, like, okay, how would I plan this out a little bit? Mm-hmm. But then I was able to get started writing on it when I had a couple really long flights. I love long flights, usually because I get to read. And this time I said, well, I'm going to start writing this story. And so I just started doing it. I just started writing. There was a scene I had in my mind, and I started writing that scene. And then I kind of was like, okay, that's interesting. And then another one kind of came up as I was writing that one, so I wrote that.
You wrote the first scene. Now, was that supposed to be the opening of the book, or was it just you started somewhere in the process? Because I think that's what might stop people, because they're like, how would I even begin page one? Like, it's a dark and stormy night. Like, why? Like, everything depends and hinges on the first sentence. Was this first thing just like, where did it end up in the process of the book? Because I love that you just started. You got to just start.
Yeah, I mean, in other writing, it's been the middle or the end or some random piece, and I'll start anywhere. In this case, it was the beginning. Because I think the story is about kind of this guy. You kind of jump into his life, and he's in this crisis. And so for me, I wanted to make sure I could kind of get that crisis moment. That was fun for me. That was the most exciting part for me when I first started, was like, yeah, I want to jump into this world and feel what he's feeling. And so I just started there. And, when you read the book, I know you're going to buy a couple copies. You'll see that it's like, there's a lot less what I would call like writing, and there's a ton of dialogue. The story moves really quickly. It kind of reads more like a screenplay. So I just wanted to like, boom, get in there and then start to put things together a little more deeply.
Yeah, it's kind of like take away this preconceived notion of like, oh God, if I'm really going to go through the publishing route, it's going to have to be X chapters, X hundred pages to necessitate, a printing and marketing. Like you just get trapped up in all these things before you even have draft one produced.
These books that I'm writing, I publish these on my own. I have my own label, my own publishing company called Ostensibly Books. And I put it on the spine of the things that I'm making, but it gives me the license to write whatever the hell I want, to make it as long or as short as I want, to make it funny or sad, fiction, nonfiction, whatever it wants to be. I can do that. And my frame of mind is, I'm going to write this, and if it's a good chapter, cool. If that's all it is 100 words, amazing. That was fun. I don't, like you said, there are a lot of preconceived notions about, being a writer. I don't want to be a writer. I just want to write. I don't want to write this thing because it sounds like fun. And so that frame of mind, I think, allows me to just get out of my own way and make whatever the hell it is I want to make. And that's the fun part, is doing it and doing it how I want to do it.
What I really loved about what you were saying was, I don't want to be a writer. Because that just comes with too much, it just comes with too much gravitas, or, then the voice can start be like, you're not that. Even if you do, X number of books, you're not really a writer. Da, da, da. So I love that you just
respect for people who are like the people I read every day in the New Yorker or fiction. Like, those people are writers. They're amazing. Mm-hmm. And
But they had to start somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
So you started with a couple different chapters on these long haul flights, and it's just kind of flowing. Did you just found yourself in this kind of flow state, and you woke up over a different country, with a book finished? How long did it take?
Yeah, several chapters written in the air. Some of them on my phone, to be honest. I think the first couple was it was okay. Here's an idea. Let's barf it out and get it out there, and then of course we're gonna revise and things. But here's basically how it works. So, I probably wrote, and these are short chapters. Probably wrote the first 5 on a flight. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way I like to do it, is let's just get it out, get a form of it out. It's going to be maybe a little bit messy, or the sentence isn't going to be perfect, but you're going to write the version of it that gets you to the next one. Mm-hmm. And then we'll come back and be like, yeah, here's a funnier metaphor, or this word is misspelled. And so, but removing all barrier is a big deal. Just get it on the page, and then we'll come back. And
you mentioned barf it out, which I think is a great visual. You're just like, okay, now there it is. Now I can potentially clean it up. The process takes over, and so it's almost autonomous. I like this idea of it has to come out. And I know that's, again, a gross visual, but maybe we got to think dirtier when it comes to this stuff, because I think we always think polished and clean. So you got this first version out, and then what was the next steps? You obviously shared it with somebody, because at some point it can't just be in your head. You got to share it, no matter how scary that is. Who was that person, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a couple people in my life who I really trust creatively. They're also creative people who are doing a variety of things. And so really at any point, and they do the same with me, at any point we can kind of share a thought in any shape or form, and have a discussion about it. And so there's a friend of mine named Ian Good. He lives in New York. He's an incredible artist. He does these among many things, he's a painter. He can build things with his hands. He does these amazing ballpoint pen drawings with he takes a 4-color ballpoint pen and creates crosshatch.
Snips through the colors.
Incredibly real. Yes, they look
cool.
You would never know anyway. Plug for Ian Good.
Yeah.
But Ian is someone who I often share work with. So he was the first one who took a read. And we have worked together in the past. We're all kind of in the creative world. So I gave him very specific request on what I was looking for. I was like, creatively, there's going to be choices you like or don't like. I don't care. Does this book, does it make sense? That was the most important thing for me. Is this coherent? Because, it's a detective story, and there are some twists and turns and some misdirections, and is it coherent was my request for him, and he was able to really help me with that.
Soliciting feedback is a huge one. It's obviously going to take a lot of guts. Most people would be scared to do it. You got a crew that you share stuff with a lot, which is great. Not many people have that, but if they don't, they've got access to someone, whether it's a friend of a friend or whoever, who can potentially provide some useful feedback. But you've made it clear that you should ask with intention. Don't just, here you go, Ian, I need some feedback. And what is the sort of process behind your printing and basically a quick summary of how self-publishing goes.
I went down to my local bookshop. I have a couple of really great bookstores in my neighborhood here in Oakland. One of them is called A Great Good Place for Books, and the other is called The Book Tree. And I was chatting with my friend David at The Book Tree, and I said, I'm writing this book. Do you know anything about self-publishing? He was like, yeah, there's a couple things you can do. And, one of them is obviously Amazon, who does their own print-on-demand service, and that's cool, and they help you with Kindles and stuff like that. And he said, but there's another one that can get you into bookstores a little bit more easily, and that's called Ingram Spark. And so Ingram is like the book catalog, huge catalog that all the bookstores in America and in the world often order from. Like Ingram is like the distributor. Ingram Spark is their print-on-demand version for weirdos like me who want to write their own book. And what I loved about that was like the potential to see my book like on a bookshelf somewhere, or
that's the dream.
For someone else in another city to send me a photo of my book on a, like, holy cow, what could be better than that? So that's how I made that decision. And other people would be like, I don't care about that. I do Kindles, so I'm going to go with Amazon. Great. Just as easy and just as quick.
What about the back of the book?
There's a line on the back here. I'll just really quickly. Leo Majors is America's sharpest private eye. But when his legendary instincts suddenly vanish, the only case he can't crack is himself. So like that kind of, it's kind of cheesy. It feels very
it's a hook. It's a hook.
But I enjoy that. So the back is like a fun challenge. And I'm kind of always thinking of like, is this story as a concept making sense? Do I need to change the concept? Is the concept strong enough? As I'm going, those things are playing in my head.
Talk to me a little bit about inspirations, and were there any for this, or did you just like sort of blast it out on your own, and any inspiration may have just happened in the back lizard brain of your head?
It's like 99% inspirations. But I think that's one of the things that AI, the conversation around AI has actually exposed a bit more, I think, is that one of the common kind of investigations of AI that people make is like, okay, well, I guess it kind of works how people do, right? Like we kind of ingest all this stuff from our lives and our ancestors and whatever is in our genes, and then we kind of filter that through our own life experience, and out comes something. And so I think people are kind of talking about that more than ever. But no, this work is heavily influenced by 90s indie movies, the Coen brothers, Grosse Point Blank, every detective book that I've read, Bob Dylan, like it's everything. And we've known each other for years. When you read this book, you will be able to be like, yeah, I know that's Bob, or that's some other thing. And like, I think that's a beautiful part of being creative is filtering the entire world through your own head and your own heart, and showing like the world what you have made of it. On a creative level, like, I had a little bit of a plan for this book. I knew a little bit of what I was going to write, but really most of the story came from me writing it. And it was interesting to me what came out of my head when I just sat down to empty it, and just the dialogue, and it was like, oh yeah, okay, that's funny, or I see where that comes from, or maybe that's too much of a reference, or but that was like a fun part of the process, was like not having it all figured out to begin with. I just enjoy that, and letting it kind of figure itself out as it went along.
That's amazing too. It's that kind of trust in the process, but said another way, like it'll figure itself out. I really like that. It literally requires just the start. You just have to begin, and that's the thing over and over again that's kept us, people like me, people like anyone else out there who's like, I've got an idea for this, but I'm not going to be able to do it, or I don't want to. And I know people who have worked and helped other people just express tons of ideas, but then they've got this one that they hold so dear that they don't want to share until it's perfect. There's all this pressure of it has to be all figured out. And if you had to literally create the story from start to finish in your head and then begin, well, goddamn, you'd never do it. It's like literally every painting starts with one brushstroke. Why do we have these unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves? I don't know what that's about. I think you've gotten over it, but I think a lot of other people haven't. Is there any other advice you might offer to those folks?
I mean, it's hard in this day and age where like really creation and sharing and other people's approval are kind of all the same thing. Like so much of our creation and sharing happens on social media, where if you're not getting likes, you feel like shit, and like that's a problem. That's a huge problem for people, and no one wants to make anything because they're afraid of that.
Yeah.
But and tell me if we need to move on. But like you mentioned, like this idea that you might have an idea and hold it really dear to you, and I think part of getting into the creation of things is like learning and figuring out that like sometimes that idea you had needs to change a little bit in order to like really be what you want it to be. Like you may have a really great idea, and once you start going, it's not working. That happens to me all the time, especially when I'm doing technology things. It's like, oh yeah, that I thought that would work. That doesn't work at all. But there's still a seed of something in there that can be carried through if I do it another way. And actually, maybe if I do it another way, it becomes smarter, it becomes better, it becomes more relatable, it becomes more possible. There's another great book that I'll plug. It's called How to Write a Thesis by Umberto Eco, the Italian writer from the 60s and 70s and 80s. And it was written for his college students about like how to go write a thesis. But like he has so many great ideas in this book, and one of them is as you go through the process, it's a part of the process that you should uncover something, you should learn something that changes your idea. Otherwise, what's the point of going through the exercise? If you've got it all figured out, why are we doing this? Like, you should go into it knowing your idea will change because you're finding stuff that changes it along the way. So, like, I think that's important too.
That's just a lovely way to say it's not going to be figured out beforehand. Like, literally, the destination will become different along the way. Otherwise, like you said, what's the point? Like, you're changing through it. And I think another thing too is, like you said, writing. Who are you writing this for, Bob? The book.
I'm writing it for me.
Amen. And that could sound selfish, but it's literally the only person you should be writing it for.
I mean, it's like we do so many. Like, I also love to play basketball, right? And I play basketball a couple times a week, but I'm not trying to be like in the NBA. Like, I am out there because I enjoy it, and I like to play with other people because that's more fun. But like, I'm not trying to monetize my basketball playing. It's like, why do we start to like hold up these weird ideas about what it means to be good, is what it means to be commercially successful, is what it means to be loved. Like, just make the thing, and making is fun, and sharing is fun. For me, you may have another strategy. Some people might literally, some authors, I don't know, maybe have it all figured out in their heads and then just write it out. I have no idea. But like, it's about, I think, finding your own, what makes you happy in the creation of something is like the point. We kind of get into this like world of everything has to be a side hustle, and I think we're starting to peel away from that a little bit. But like, that's I think that's pretty destructive to someone who wants to make cool things for themselves.
I'm thinking of a next cool thing for you, Bob, and I think it's gonna be around basketball. It's gonna be about a guy in his 40s who has two kids, I don't know, roughly like 10 and 13, who like is discovered by an NBA scout. Discovered by an NBA scout, and it's not because you're that good. It's just because you got charisma, and you can go out there and like whip up the audience. You're like half cheerleader, half like they bring you in when the team is just losing by a mile, and there's no way they're going to catch up.
Okay, that would be great, and hopefully that will be a memoir. Hopefully that happens in reality, and then we can write the recap of it.
Maybe Lars von Trier directs, and it's his first comedy. Like, maybe he's got to dabble in comedy. I think he got stuck in. And who am I to say? He's a true artist, but I can't. How about who was the guy that did Tree of Life? Terrence Malick. Like, Malick. What if
you put a laugh track on a Terrence Malick film and it's a totally different experience?
I want to talk about one last thing. This idea happened when you were with your kids walking along. What part of this? Was there any motivation for you along the way of writing it where you're like, I got to finish this, or I need to keep going? Like, is this maybe going to be kind of a legacy for like those guys when they're older? They can read it again, even if no other people on the planet read it. They're like, oh my gosh, yeah, remember when we were at Dad and he wrote that book? That's a kind of a lovely thing. How did that
100%.
affect you?
No, it's a huge part of why I do literally anything, which is to model some behavior for these guys that's about the power of taking action on something. I think for young people, it's never been easier to sit around at home just flipping through a screen and letting the world kind of deliver whatever content is going to appear in your face. And I think what I hope they come away with is being like, yeah, dads or adults make stuff. They do weird things. They go talk to people. They don't look at their phone all day. Like, I'm trying to model that for them to be like just as productive and productive, like not just in making stuff, but like in the making of things that make you happy, that make the world into the world you want it to be. Like, just go do something. And so, yeah, I mean, even like I think I mentioned earlier, like we talked about the idea, we loved it. And there were a couple of weeks where I had a ton going on with work, and my older son, Otto, was like, Dad, what's going on with the book? What's going on? Have you finished it? What's going on? Because they had, like, over the years, I think they have an expectation that if we say we're going to do it, we're doing it.
It's so sweet. It's like they're accountability partners in a way.
And I shared an early, like I had an idea in my mind, and I shared it with them, and they were like, no. They gave me good feedback, because the idea that I had was, they were like, Dad, it's cool. We like it. It sounds kind of like a kid's book. And they were like, we want something that's like a real book. So I was like, okay, cool. Like that's very helpful, because I'm glad we had this talk, and I shifted things, and now, there are like F words in this book.
Yeah, you dialed down the YA, and you dialed up the
Yeah.
hardcore, the hard-boiled detective stuff. That's so great.
That's
It's just like for anyone looking to make or do, like you said, you can flip through the screen all day. You can have your Grubhub delivered to you for the rest of your life, or you can start looking at making your own recipe and trying it out. And maybe it tastes terrible, or maybe you love it and no one else likes it, but you made it for you, and that's all that matters, because you don't have to open up a pop-up restaurant. Any last words, Bob?
No, man, this is great. I'm inspired by you every time I see you posting something, just like helping people get stuff out into the world. I think that's huge. So thank you for allowing me to be a small part of that mission.
Oh, thanks so much.